The next topic in Python that we should probably be going over is the concept of lists. Now, we've learned before already that Python has a few different types of, few data types. So for example, we could have a Boolean, which is x equals true or x equals false, right? That's a variable that can only take on a true or false value. There's also numbers, which can sort of be broken down into ints and floats. Python 3, that's still ints and floats are still distinctly different data types, but they are kind of merging a little bit now because, for example, as we've been learning, 3 divided by 4 in Python now is actually 0.75, where before 3 divided by 4, if you did like Python 2, would have been closer to the 3//4 or integer divide by 4. Okay, but anyway, so there's booleans, numerical values, integers, which are whole numbers, right, with no decimal point after them, and floats, which have decimal points, and then there are strings, right, which are like y equals cat. If we look at y, it's a cat. Okay, so in Python there's another data type, which is actually really a collection of these data types, which is known as a string, a list. And a list is actually made in the following way. So you would go, let's make a list called R, and R is going to be a list, and we make lists in Python with square brackets. So we're going to say R is a list with a open square bracket, and we're going to add in the number 1, 5, 8, and then, I don't know, 10. All right? And if we were to just do R, okay, or print R, of course, right, we can see it's actually a collection of things inside of it, 1, 5, 8, and 10. We can access individual things within that list by doing this, R, square bracket, and then the index of the number of the array, of the list. Okay, so if we were to do 1, we get 5 out. Now, why do we get 5 out? That's because in Python, in most programming languages, we're not doing MATLAB or something, the first element is actually index 0. Okay, so in most computer science and the ECS, we index from 0. So if we were to actually do R of 0 down here in the lower left, you can see, okay, 1 pops out, and that's, in our array, 1. R of 1 is actually 5. R of 2 would be the number 8, and so on and so on. Lists in Python don't have to just be numbers. We could have a list called maybe types of pets. Let's say, okay, and that's going to have the string cat, I don't know, dog, bird, teacup, pig, or something. Whatever. Okay. Then if we were to look at this type of pets, we can see that, and then we could, look at the first one. Let's look at 0. Okay, so cat. All right, very nice. Lists can have lists in them, so we could have maybe another list. Let's call it y. All right, and that's going to be a list of the numbers 1, 2, 3, and then a list itself of maybe 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is going to look weird, but if we were to print it out, y is 1, 2, 3, and then a list of 4, 5, 6. We can have a list of lists, and we can also mix things too. So we can actually say, let's copy this line. So y equals maybe 1, 2, 3, cat, 4, 5, 8, I don't know. Whoops, that was not good. The word dog, close that, close that. Do you see as I add in those square brackets, like one thing highlights then another? This is a nice thing about a text editor like Idle, is it'll actually kind of remind you where the sister opening square bracket is for a certain closing square bracket. And this is good for debugging, because once you have like multiple square brackets, things can get kind of gross. So if we look at y again now, it's got this. So if we're to do y of 2, it's the number 3. If we're to do y of 3, we would do cat. And if we were to do y of, I don't know, 4, right, it's going to be itself a list. And if we want to get to elements inside of that list, which we just got, we'd have to do y of 4. And then if we wanted to access the word dog, we'd have to do y of 0, 1, 2, 3. So 3. So dog. Okay, that worked really nice. We can actually then, by accessing things like this, reassign them. So we could actually say y of 4, 3 equals cat instead. And then what does y look like? Y is now a list of 1, 2, 3 cat, and then a list of 4, 5, 8 cat. So we can change things as needed. So maybe we want to make the first element of y, I'm sorry, the 0th element of y, chicken. Okay, now y is chicken, 2, 3 cat, and a list of 4, 5, 8 cat. Now one more thing before we end this segment is strings themselves, which we've been working with already. So we come up with a string, maybe u equals, I don't know, Alexander Hamilton. Right, and look at it. So this string, so in Python, strings are basically lists of 1 character long strings. So we can actually look at individual elements of a string by doing the same sort of indexing we just did with lists. So we could say y of 4 is a. And why is it a? It's because capital A is the 0th, L is the first, E is the second, X is the third, little a is the 4th element. Now with another thing you can do, you can look at like individual elements of a string or a list. So remember, U is Alexander Hamilton and Y is this weird list of, I have no idea what would be the realistic representation for this list, but nevertheless, U is Alexander Hamilton, Y is this thing. If we want to look at multiple parts of a list-like thing, so let's say we wanted to look at, you know, the first through the 8th element of Alexander Hamilton, we could do 1:8. All right. Now in Python, the way these range things work, it's you will then have access to the first element up to but not including the 8th element. So it's bottom inclusive to top exclusive. So if we were to do u and then 0 to 8, we'd get Alexander. All right, if we were to do u 0 to 10, Alexander space. Okay. Shorthand, we also, if we're starting at 0, we don't even need to put the 0. We could do u:10 and have the same exact thing. On the similar end, you can actually do u:10:, and that would be from 10 to the end. Another interesting thing about, and the same thing happens for the y list that we've seen before, right? We could do y1:n, so that's all of the y elements from 1 onwards, or we could just do y1:3, that's just the first and second elements in the array, but not the third, right? So it's the first through, but not including the third. Arrays, you can also, an important thing with them, and this is actually something you'll come to really use, I think, is like if we go back to our string, Alexander Hamilton, you can actually have negative indices on your array. So if we look at u of -1, what do you think that would be? N. Where's n in here? Well, there's a couple n's, but actually what this is it's the last character, the last element of the string. So negative indices in Python actually go backwards in a list. So we could also do that with y. So remember, y is this thing. If we did y of -1, it's this, you know, y of -1 of -2 is going to be what? Should be the number 8, and it is.